mobility scooter, motor, and transaxle replacement. Before we get started, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It's free and it'll help me out. Now you're probably wondering, how does something like this actually go on a mobility scooter? Well, I am a little hard on it, and I did actually turn it into a lawn roller at one point in time. I'd use it to roll out my lawn in the spring. You're probably wondering how this crazy repair started. Well, I was out on the scooters with my father, and we were riding along the river on the community trails. I was on the old scooter and he was on the new scooter, and we were climbing a large hill, and that's when the gear broke. The donor scooter. Okay, this is the donor cycle. Paid $100 for it. It's going to actually turn out to probably be a little treasure trove, because some of the parts on here are worth way more than that. So let's take a look here. The story behind this is someone left it out in the rain and it wouldn't start afterward, or wouldn't go. So what I need out of it is the transmission, obviously. So this is what it looks like as I got it. Stripping down the scooter to get the parts that I need. Let the fun begin. Removing the seat can be a little bit difficult, but the trick is you turn the seat to about a 45-degree angle, hold on to the pin that allows you to turn it, and then lift it up. It's important that you remove the batteries first, disconnect the power. All I'm doing here is just basically stripping the machine down. I don't need any of these parts. The only parts that I need is the motor and the transmission. The parts here that I'm removing are the control board and the onboard charging station. I don't need any of those parts. All I'm trying to do is get access to the motor and transaxle. Now I'm lifting the bike up so I can try and get the bolts from underneath. The access is a little bit tight depending on the different models that you have. So in most cases it's usually easier to access from underneath. Now with the batteries out, you can flip this machine upside down, do whatever you want to it. But do not ever flip the machine upside down when you have batteries inside, because most of the time they're lead acid and it could leak and spill out. And the only problem is, I'll bet you that the rims are seized onto the shaft. So that's going to make things a little bit more fun. Okay, to remove this linkage here, because this is a Phillips, what you would normally do is you would need an impact screwdriver. I'm just going to try it with this guy and the wrench here, and we'll see what happens. Not a problem. I'm glad to see that that happened. The only thing I was after on this machine, I hope that it's compatible with the other one. Hopefully. The ignition switch. You want to have a spare ignition switch because they go all the time, and they're $48 to replace. How do you test an ignition system? These guys are either on or off. So set your checker up to buzz. Doesn't matter which color you stick in. So I got no noise there. I turn the key. Okay, so the ignition's okay. Jiggle the wires around. Jiggle the key around. So the ignition system's okay on this. So it wasn't the ignition system, because these guys are notorious for going. I've replaced 2 of these on my father's scooter already. That's a spare. The broken scooter. So I bet you're wondering, what does a broken scooter sound like? Well, give it a listen. Okay, time for the super fast teardown. Okay, as you can tell, that motor is way bigger than that motor. So this is not going to be a compatible fix, unfortunately. Okay, so I got one last ditch effort. This motor is about half the size maybe of the other motor. So I'm wondering if I can get the wheels off, right off the hub here, and then put the larger wheels on. I might have a go of it. If this doesn't work, then I'm gonna have to scrap that other machine. So we'll see. The biggest problem with scooters is the hub sees on, and all it takes is a drop of anti-seize to cure that problem. That came off nice and easy. Somebody has monkey farted with this. I don't know why that's on there. I know that's not the right key. And I don't know what this rubber band's doing here. It could naturally have wrapped around, but they had this on top of the rubber band. I guess it's a makeshift seal to stop the motor from seizing up. I don't know. But, oh, because the seal's broken on the end, that's why. This just gets better and better. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do, unfortunately, is I'm going to have to take the air out of the tire, separate the rim, and then use a puller, I think. So we'll give that a try and see how that goes. Okay, if you've watched any of my other videos, while there's pressure in the tire, you cannot separate the rim. You got to take the pressure off the tire, or this thing will blow off and strip some of your threads, which you don't want. So I'm going to take the valve stem remover here. Ooh, that stinky air. Impact gun. This can be done with a regular wrench. It's just easier this way, and you just need somebody else to help you hold it. Oh. So now I have to remove this from this shaft. So I'm going to get a puller. I'm going to center drill, or I'm going to center punch and center drill here so that my puller doesn't slip off the end. Okay, so there's no center on the end of this shaft. My puller has a point and I don't want it to slip around, so I'm going to put a small center in that shaft. So I'm going to take my center punch here, line it up the best I can with the center of the shaft here, say right about here. Take a small center drill, make sure it's sharp, and be very careful because you're doing this by hand. These break off really easy. You just want to go to the point where the chamfer starts widening out. I don't know if you can see that or not. Just starting to widen out. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Good enough. Okay, so I'm going to assemble this in a 2-spot so it can grip here and here. They'll twist around. This unit isn't really good for super high pressure, but we'll see if we can get it off with this or not. Okay, so Okay, so some of you guys are saying, hey Ray, use the impact gun on here. Don't use an impact gun on here. If you do, you're just going to damage it. I don't think this is going to come off with this, but we'll see. Now you can use a hammer to tap. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So now I got a twisting motion here from this. So what I'm going to do is take another wrench, put it in between here. So when I twist, I'm not bending anything. Okay, so what I have is I have this guy seized onto the shaft. I've tried penetrating oil, I've tried wheel pullers. I've done what I can. So I'm going to try a last thing, muriatic acid. I know it sounds a little crazy, but the muriatic acid will eat the rust? Maybe. We'll see. If you leave it for 24 hours in muriatic acid and it comes off, I'm doing okay. If not, then I just wasted a day, which I'm okay with as well. So let's give that a try. Okay, so I have my setup here. I have a cup, and then outside of the cup I have a container. Why am I so cautious, or why am I worried about the muriatic acid? Because if it gets onto the concrete, it'll actually eat a hole into the concrete. So I don't want to do that. I don't know if you can see the smoke coming off of it. That is brutal stuff. I don't like to do it this way, but I don't want to heat it up with the torch, so this is all I got for now. And that's really bubbling. Makes me glad that I tied it off so it can't accidentally fall over. Okay, so it's only been about an hour or 2 hours, and this thing's totally stunk up the shop. So I gotta open the door. This is stinky. Still bubbling a little bit. Well, let's pull it out, wash it off, and we'll see if it's worked at all. A lot of bubbles still going on there. Hey, you guys thought I was joking about this. See how it's eating the concrete? Not a drop of rust on that guy. Okay, I'm not saying this is gonna work, but you can see there's no rust on here. But if you take a really close look, I'll see if I can zoom in. You see the etching that's on there? I actually etched some of the metal away. Here. Okay. So let's see if I can get this guy off now. I don't think putting it in the muriatic acid longer is going to help. The muriatic acid works well for hinges and things like that. Just not. Very frustrating. All it would have taken was a little bit of anti-seize on there down the road. So I think this is a fail. I can cut it off, but then have you ever had a voice in your head saying, hey Ray, you should give up, whispers in your ear a little bit? Well, mine's yelling at me, and it's been yelling for a while. As you may have guessed, I am not a scooter mechanic. I'm just trying to get a machine fixed so that my father will have a backup scooter. He's not left without. Some of the tactics that I use are what we would use in a machine shop to remove stuff. So now hopefully what this did was it relieved the stress on here, and it's going to allow me to pull this thing off. Hopefully. And hopefully I didn't hit the shaft either, because I don't want to hit the shaft as well.
A lot of hopefullys in there.
A lot of people have a hard time believing that the hub can seize onto the shaft. But a little bit of salt water in there and it's seized.
You know what? I'm going to cut it all the way through and see what I can do. I'm close, but I'm not all the way through. I'm all the way into the shaft with the split. This guy just does not want to come off. I know what you're thinking. Time to cut the other side.
Okay, so up to this point, I've split one side of the hub all the way to the shaft. So there's a slit all the way down. So I flipped it over and I split the other side of the hub right into the shaft. So there's no hub actually holding this piece together. The only thing holding this on is rust. I still can't seem to be able to get it off.
Motor wins. Okay, so basically where we left off is last night I put extra penetrating oil on. I kept the pressure of the gear puller on. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to try and break this free by using a chisel to go in here and wedge it, and we'll see if it breaks free. And we got it free. So therefore now the hub, well, we got it mostly free. A couple more turns and we should have this guy off of here. Actually, I think that's hurting having that on there. Break that off of there. Still doesn't want to give up the goose easily, but we're at a point now where let's try breaking it from the other side. There we go. That wasn't without its efforts, I'll give you that. Wow, this guy still doesn't want to give up the goose. Nothing like being seized on. This guy is determined to stay on, but I'm determined for it to come off. I've already put enough effort into this. Okay, so I did get this guy off. What I ended up doing is I took 2 wrenches because I needed something that I could push down on. So I put the 2 wrenches like this together, so the 2 flats were on there. Put it on top here, and then hit with the hammer to make that come off. That way nothing else got damaged.
Now it's time to remove the motor from the scooter we're keeping.
Okay, now I need to pull the transmission and axle out of this machine. I need to get access to underneath here. So I want to drop the axle down. So I'm going to flip the bike over. And I need to remove these 4 bolts that hold the motor in place. Okay, so I'm going to try and remove the wheels. Now, I've replaced both of these wheels in previous videos, or tires. I think the driver's one, or the right-hand side one, might come off, but I doubt it. We'll see.
This scooter is much older than the other one, but I used anti-seize on the hubs and they come off quite easily.
Now we have these screws to remove. They're more than likely just going to snap off, but if, let's say you had a motorcycle head or something else that you want to do, the only real way of removing those is using an impact screwdriver. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how to do this right now. Make sure that the head fits. Okay, you want to get a good feel on here, and you also want to set it to be removed, so when you push down it turns. There's an on and off with these guys. So as I hit this down, it's going to turn. Do you see that? It unscrews it. It's unscrewing it. That one is hard to see. This one's... Oh, that one's not going to work. The head's rotted a little much, I think the head's rotted too much on this one. Nope. That one's going to be a snapper. But if you looked, and on this guy here, the head is just too far gone. Okay, so I'm going to try something out here. So what I have is I have a cheap extractor set. Okay, this is not a standard extractor set. This extractor set is for screws. This is a machine screw, so it's a little iffy if it'll work or not. And you see this piece here is in the way, so I'll have to be drilling in on an angle, which is not good. You should be able to get them straight on with these guys. So I'm going to use the smallest one here out of this set, which is this guy. Looks like it's the smallest one. How this works is you put the drill bit in first. Okay, I'm not saying this is the best idea, but it's a bit of a workaround. See? Told you it wasn't a good idea. Okay, well, that just goes to show. Oopsie, these guys do work. I'm going to have to tap it out from the back. You have to spin them in reverse though. Now that we've got that ordeal out of the way, let's see if we can actually get this motor out. Okay, there's some wiring here. Right here. I'm going to need to cut this clip, and I'll do a video showing you where the wires are at inside. There we go. Let's take a look. So now the motor's ready to come out. I just need to pop these guys off. Now, I did not see this in here before. What kind of joke is this? But that's fine. Well, I didn't even need to do any of that. All I need to do is remove this guy right here, and this whole section will come out. Okay. Let's see if the camera falls or not. bet you there's some kind of... Nope, I guess it isn't a clip holding that thing on. So the motor is 100%, well, I still have, oh, sorry about that. I still have this handle to deal with, but I might be able to shimmy it out. If not, I'm gonna have to take off those 2 screws there. And this motor is much heavier than this guy. As we can see, it's at least twice the size. We'll see. Okay, so I want to see what this gear actually looks like. Listen. And that's just me turning this thing by hand. So let's take this guy apart. The weird thing is, I thought this would be metric, but for some reason, this is an imperial screw right here, so who knows? This is also there's four brush motor, not a 2-brush motor. That other motor is a 2-brush motor. That's the coupling for it. A lot less revealing than I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. And this guy here is the actual transmission. Doesn't look too sinister inside. The neighbor's getting some work done. It would be nicer if they were quieter. Okay, so now this is odd. This guy here, I bet you is metric now, but the bolts with the motor on weren't.
I still want to be gentle taking these pieces apart. I don't want to damage anything, just in case I have to reuse some of these pieces down the road. And some guys will say, Ray, why are you using a small brass hammer when I have a nice 5-pound hammer? I could just knock stuff apart easily. The reason why is it doesn't mar the surface, and it's just the right weight to do a lot of different types of hammering.
So the main transmission's good. This guy's bent and broken. Oh no, look. There's chunks of the transmission here. The other half. The other half of this guy. Oh. The other half of this guy snapped off. And there's pieces all in here. That guy snapped, and the only thing driving the gear was this little piece here, and it just took all the blades right out. So if I had another one of these,
The piece on the far left and the piece on the far right are the pieces that snapped.
okay, so the dream would be if I could swap this motor out and put this big motor in, but unfortunately the diameter here is much larger than this diameter here. And even if it would fit, because it does show it being smaller here, I would be hitting the gussets, and I don't want to do that. So basically now I need to convert this plug to this plug here. Let's check out and see if the brushes are any good in here, because this unit wasn't running when I got it. So far, not so good. I can't even get the cap off. be able to see this. Oh, there's lots of material there. Lots of material there. And you can't see inside, but it's shiny. See if I can bring it in for a closer look here. It's difficult to see, but it is shiny inside. The shaft is shiny, so this guy is all good. Put that guy back in gently. There we go. It's in nice and tight. Lots of life left on those brushes. Screw this backwards to start. Get the thread. I don't want to cross thread. Backwards to start. And then finish by going forward. Not too tight, but just tight enough. Next, these two ends are not compatible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wiring out.
At the beginning, I had a nasty time using the flathead screwdriver on the fittings. I hate flathead screwdrivers. They're nasty to work with. They take so much time. It is very important that you take your time during this process and match the wires up correctly, because if you don't match the wires up correctly, there's so many different things that could happen. You could have a short, you could have a fire when you're charging, all sorts of different things could happen that you don't want to happen. At this point, we're talking about the brake on the motor. If you don't have the wires hooked up correctly, the electric brake won't work and the motor will not move. So it's important that you take your time and go through the wiring diagrams to calculate and make sure that you have all of your wires connected properly. This part of the video is a little bit boring because all it is cutting and splicing, cutting and splicing. It would have been ideal to have a motor that I could just drop in, but I had the donor motor and that's all I had. Okay, it's time to reassemble the motor into the machine. In some cases you need to put a piece of wood on the bottom to lift it up, because when you start putting the top bracket in, it actually slides down. I didn't have a problem with doing it this time. It just seemed to pop right in. Putting the wires in was a little bit more difficult, getting your hand inside of that tight spot. Always use anti-seize on your wheels, because if not, you're going to run into a situation that you don't want to have. Remember, at the end of the day, you don't want any extra parts, so during reassembly, take your time. Now, I did clean the shaft up that's not in this video. The wheels fit on perfectly. Okay, so the scooter's basically assembled. The motor is inside, the transaxle's inside. Just reinstalling the batteries, hooking up the power. And that's about it for our part 1. Please stay tuned for our part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It's free and it'll help me out. You can check out other great videos on my YouTube channel, Ray's Fix, and my professional channel, Shop and Math. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.